Hey, Catalyst, let's daydream. Imagine a world where you wake up and you look at your schedule and you see patients that you're familiar with. You love seeing them because they're enthusiastic, they're driven, they're ready for change, they have hope, and they believe in the power of holistic, integrative, and functional medicine. Not only that, you have 4 new discovery calls, and instead of dreading them and bracing for impact and having awkward conversations around money, it's an opportunity just to dance with another human being and help them on that pathway to change. Well, these mini series episodes are for you. This is part 1 in a 4-part series called The Art of Transformational Onboarding. And we're going to help you create a welcome experience that activates change right from the start. This episode is red flags and green flags, how you can screen without any guilt. And this will help you feel authentic and ethical in your ability to show somebody the opportunity that they can step into and invest without feeling salesy. So let's dig in. Welcome to The Catalyst Way, the podcast for women clinicians ready to clear the chaos and create space to flourish. I'm Dr. Lara Salyer, a former burned out family practice doctor turned mentor, author, and professional calendar whisperer. I help women in medicine reclaim time, trust their intuition, and build practices that actually fit their lives. Each week, you'll get practical tools, creative strategies, and tiny shifts that help you color outside the lines and paint a work-life masterpiece of authentic, aligned joy. As always, we're going to start with a story. And this story pulls from all the wonderful catalysts and humans I get to work with every day. In addition to my role at the School of Applied Functional Medicine as the Director for Practitioner Activator, I help run that mentorship as well. And so I have the honor of walking in the journey with all these practitioners working to spread the wonderful functional medicine effects across this planet. And one thing is a common thread. We are not salespeople. We do not even like to talk about money. Many of us went into medical training and actually avoided numbers. Stats class would have been our least favorite class. So imagine we've catapulted into a new era of healthcare where our current healthcare system is crumbling. Insurance is actually not helping out a lot of our chronically ill patients. You're seeing this in the news with trailblazers like Dr. Elizabeth Potter, who has privately funded a surgical clinic because she was having problems with insurance. And so people are being creative with the ways that they're dealing with this infrastructure that no longer is delivering on the promise that it once held. And so this is giving us a golden opportunity to step into this era with confidence. And yet we are unprepared for those skills. The common complaint I hear across all the mentees that I work with is I hate talking about money. I hate talking about finances, and I feel like I'm trying to convince people or sell them something, and I can't even promise if it's going to work. And then they spiral. And I get it. I've been there. This is exactly how I felt when I opened my doors 8+ years ago. It felt odd and I felt unprepared. Discovery call was something I'd never even thought I'd have to do. I mean, I'm a physician. People just come to me when they felt sick or they needed healing. And yet now I was operating under a different roadmap. I needed to educate and to also help people feel welcomed. If you stick with us here in this mini series of 4 episodes, you're going to feel a lot more confident about not only your discovery call process, but the way that you onboard your patients. Because listen up, if you can get comfortable with the discomfort of these financial discussions, but you also get comfortable with the way that you can ethically talk about your services in a way that feels aligned and invokes your own unique personality, this is going to be one of the favorite parts of your whole day. I promise you. So the story begins where we're talking in a group and hands were going up and everybody was nodding their heads. One person after the other was saying, I absolutely don't even want to do my discovery calls. Some people were raising their hands saying, I outsource that to my assistant or my virtual assistant or my nurse or my MA. Other people were saying, I don't even do discovery calls. I just let them book their first appointment in my calendar. Some people were saying, well, I tried discovery calls, but then I had a lot of no-shows. We also heard complaints like, I just don't even want to talk about how much it costs. And, I know that they're waiting to hear that value. And by the time I tell them how much, then the discovery call is pretty much done and they never book. My conversion rate is not good. If you can feel yourself in any of these experiences, number one, you're not alone. This is common behavioral economics. The discovery call, there's an art to it, but the art begins long before you get on the phone call with a patient or a Zoom meeting or an in-person meet and greet. The discovery call is a beautiful process that you can use to kind of self-excavate how you like to show up and find your own signature way of doing this discovery call. There's no two paths that are the same. So as you're listening to this 4-part mini series, I encourage you to get a piece of paper out because there's going to be some interactive exercises. And like we talk about flow and creativity, and those alpha brain waves hiding in the back will come forward with connections that you may not even realize, with epiphanies and ahas. So have a pen or paper or your notes app on your phone open, because today we're going to help you craft your red, yellow, and green light list so that you can spot ideal patients and clients as they're coming into your services and make it easier for them and for you to pair up and work together. And if you're listening saying, I already have this process worked out, well, here's a little litmus test that you may need to polish this process. If your calendar is filled with patients that drain you don't have a time problem. You might have a gatekeeping problem. So let's get going. This all starts with the idea that a discovery call is truly for discovery, but really it's also a chemistry connection. It's an alignment opportunity. It's a way that you can see if you want to work with that patient. So it feels a little like a job interview in a way. They're checking you out, but you're also checking them out. I tell my patients that I work with them. I am their coworker. And so I want to choose my coworkers very, very carefully with discernment. That's different than judging. I am very open to the imperfections we have as humans, the habits that we want to break, but we keep doing, the, self-sabotage and limiting beliefs that we all have. We're all human. So judgment is something that I don't try to incorporate. In fact, I try to offer a judgment-free zone, but discernment is appropriate. I would much rather turn away somebody who I don't feel is an easy fit for the way I like to deliver my care, rather than take them on board because I'm feeling like I need the income. And then we're both frustrated. They're really not understanding what I'm saying, or they don't have the capacity to implement some of the changes or the infrastructure in their life to make these transformational impacts occur in their calendar. I mean, there's a list of so many reasons. And that's what this episode is about. If you can pre-screen ahead of time, then it saves you wasted time in a discovery call. It saves that patient this ungrounded hope that there's a quick miracle cure. And so we're going to talk about what I like to do in my pre-screening, but some of these ideas are collected from other mentees, from other examples. So, feel free to jot them down if they resonate. Now, the way that I do this pre-screening is I don't have my calendar on my website. They're not able to book right into my calendar for a discovery call. I call them strategy sessions because I like to invoke this sense that we're both working towards a plan and a strategy. It also aligns with the way that my messaging on my website is geared around patients going back to university in their own body. They're going to college. They're going to learn and be educated about their own physiology and how they can realign their biochemistry and processes. I also add in some flow neuroscience, some creativity, a little bit of spirituality, helping them kind of unclench from this limbic system overdrive, as I tend to specialize in stress and burnout. So the way I like to pre-screen is long before I get on the call, I want to make sure that they're understanding the limits of my services, the the depth, the breadth of what I offer, and also kind of checking in to see if they're ready for this kind of investment, not just in money, but also time and energy, especially if they're stressed and burned out. So this pre-screen is a simple Google form. If you go on my website, you can even see the questions I ask. It's applying for a strategy session. They're not able to book right in, so they click the button, apply for a strategy session. So if you have this already set up on your website, you can swap in a vetting quiz, so to speak, or a Google form. These answers then go to my assistant, and she has a list of my red and green flags, and she also understands the yellow flags that are maybe a possibility, and those she'll send me and say, I'm not sure, do you want to offer this person a discovery call or strategy session? And so she's the main gatekeep number one who helps me organize how I would like to, invite people in further in this transformational experience. So one rule of this red and green flag situation is just by asking these questions, you're already starting them down the path of transformation. And that's why I love to use a lot of forms in my services. If you work with me as a patient, or if you're a mentee in my Catalyst studio, you know that I love Google Forms. Why? Because it gives me a peek into your thought process, a peek into your progress and what you've done or accomplished, any changes. But it's part of the magic. As you commit to answering questions, it's really not just for me being overbearing and nosy. It's really to help you think through. The questions are very carefully sequenced, and the wording changes subtly over the years as I've increased my skills at providing a grounded, safe, polyvagal attuned space for transformation. So I really think words are magic spells. And I take pride in all of the ways that I use a Google form to help whoever I'm working with critically think about what they're doing. And so just by you implementing this vetting strategy, you are already helping somebody embark on change because they're having to answer to their deepest wishes. They're having to own up to what hasn't worked, or some of the choices they may have already made. And it's giving this glimpse to themselves of ways they can start peeking behind their own curtain and creating change. Quick intermission. When I was suffering burnout, I didn't need another protocol. I needed permission to be myself, which is why I wrote my book, Right Brain Rescue. It's a funny, raw, and honest take on the physician burnout epidemic, and also how creativity helped me come back to life. This is also why I love making infographics and self-paced courses, because I want to save you time and spark your creativity and help you see that healing happens when we're fully ourselves. So head to drlarasalyer.com/shop and browse the products. You might find something that can save you time, spark your creativity, and help you make your career the joy that it should be. Let's start with green flags. These are fun because the way I like to find my green flags, in fact, it's patients that are easy, that are fun to work with. They're a great match. And those feel good. You can feel that in your body. Think of the last two patients that you smiled the most at, that you felt, gratitude emanate from them. They were thanking you for your service and your support, and you equally felt that this was a fun experience, that you made some changes in their life. They were able to progress in their journey, and they left your services feeling so much better, or at least more educated and clear about some of the habit changes or paths that they needed to implement further. Think of those people. Think of who they were, their gender, their age, their diagnoses. Start writing those down if you have your paper or in your notes app, because that will help you as we're priming your brain to think of more ways you can incorporate green flags. Because sometimes green flags in your vetting questionnaire could just be simply, how old are you? What are some of the symptoms you have? I mean, those can be easy green flags, because if you love working with GI problems, that could be your bread and butter. But if you are somebody who doesn't have the capacity to investigate SIBO, then that might be something for you to think about. But here are some examples of green flags. I have my notes here. I like to ask about mindset, right? Why now? What have you done already? This is an open-ended question because it can help me see if they answer plainly, I haven't done anything. You're my first stop. Okay. That will give me an idea of how much education they're going to need. And maybe I'm not the right fit for them as their first stop. Consequently, if they answer, you're my fifth functional medicine provider, and I haven't found an answer yet, that's also a different feeling in my body. And I also have different questions that I will queue up in the discovery call. But mindset is critical, especially if they say, I'm ready for deeper work and I know there isn't a quick fix. That is a great mindset to have. I'm looking for clues that they have that positivity, that optimism, that hope, that they know it's going to take work and they're ready and they know it's not a quick fix. It's not just a pill for an ill or a sup for what's up. It is going to be a complicated, puzzle pieced picture of how I can help them with a comprehensive plan. The other thing I like is research, evidence of research. Have they done their research? You can see this in their questionnaire if they say things like, I have been following you for years. I'm on your newsletter list, or my friend saw you. And then I asked them about what happened, or I subscribe to these specific functional medicine influencers on social media. And I've read a lot about HPA axis and stress and burnout, or here's a book I read and it really impacted me. And I looked and found you in the practitioner database and I'm excited. I resonate with this approach, right? So when people have done their research, I love that. That shows me that they're really being discerning about who they work with and how they want to get better. The third thing is look at the language they use. Is it optimistic? That's a green flag for me, right? If they're asking curious and respectful questions and they do have words peppered in like hopeful, excited, looking forward to this, these are green flags that tell me that they're excited, hopeful, looking forward to this work. The last thing you want is somebody being drug in by their partner or spouse saying, well, my friend or my partner told me I needed to see you. That's a very different vibe, right? Responsibility is another green flag. When they own the responsibility that they've tried A, B, and C, and I did see benefit from A, B, and C, not so much, and that's showing that they want to be that active participant in their healing. That's a huge green flag. Another green flag is investment. There's evidence that they have spent and invested in themselves before. Maybe they get monthly massages, or maybe they have a CrossFit gym that they've already joined, or maybe they've already spent money on other holistic healers, acupuncturists, Chinese medicine healers, whatever it is, they have evidence that they put themselves in the spotlight and they are worth it. It's harder when there's no evidence of any previous investment in time or finances. If you're running ragged and you're, shuttling kids here and there, hey, I get you. I'm in the middle of mover duty as well and life is busy. But when you don't take any time for yourself, it's going to be hard to break that mindset and have that ability to invest not just time, but also finances. Because if you don't feel at the core that you are worth it, that your health and your spirit and your heart and your joy is worth it, that's going to be a difficult conversation to have. Self-awareness is another green flag, right? When people tell me the exact ways that they get overwhelmed, or they have that self-awareness to say, I get triggered by these things. Here's examples. Patients telling me, I don't like looking on the scale. It gets me triggered because I tend to get obsessed with data, or I took my Aura ring off because I was getting really caught up on the HRV, or all of those self-aware cues. That's a green flag. I can work with that. We're all human. We all have things that trip us up. And to ignore that or deny it or deflect and say, I'm fine, I'm going to do whatever you say, that's not the answer. We don't want a people-pleasing patient. We want a patient that's real, that's like honest and says, yeah, here's what I found works well for me. In my intake, I often will ask, do you prefer homework automatically? Do you like to learn? Or are you somebody who would rather ask for homework? Or things like, how will I know if you're struggling? this kind of self-awareness is critical because sometimes people have never been asked that question. I don't know, I guess I've never been asked, how will I tell somebody when I need help? That's a huge thing. And lastly, openness. When a patient has openness visible on their vetting survey, right? Openness like, you know, I may not understand all the inner workings of the chakra system or of the overlap with, you know, acupuncture points and osteopathic Chapman's points. I mean, all these little intricacies of the different modalities of how we can find health in our body, but they're open to learning more. That's awesome. Because I was there too. I had never even heard of functional medicine in 2015, and I stumbled upon it. And here this has been here for a while. And now, the longer I'm in it, I'm seeing the deficiencies and also the benefits, because not one medical system or healing modality is perfect. And that's why you pull from so many. And integrative medicine is very important to understand where you may pass the ball into the field of somatics or of embodiment or of Chinese medicine. It's a really important way to know the openness is critical. Okay, so hopefully you've come up with some green flags. Think of other green flags. Not only, like I said, the type of patient, the symptoms, but what lab tests do you geek out about? Don't call in patients who might completely go against the favorite lab test that you really enjoy learning more about. This is your time to queue up your ideal clinic and be able to cherry pick where you want to study for the rest of your life if you want, or at least until you change your mind, because as we know, we can always change our mind and shape the kind of patients we like to work with. For me, I started out as a generalist and I loved learning about all the different stool tests, salivary tests, hormone tests, heavy metals, toxins. And then it became clear that my passion, my zone of genius was working with women, specifically working women that were feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and burned out. And I got to help them get clarity around their stress hormones, the way their adrenals were functioning or not, and how that could impact their perimenopausal years. So as I grew in my practice, I was able to hone in, and certain other lab tests fell to the side. So now I'm better at able to capture those patients that are fitting that kind of type of people I love helping. And it's let me be able to really become an expert in certain labs. So think about the lab companies you enjoy working with or that you just want to grow your skills in. And that's another way to set up more green flags. Okay, let's move on to red flags. So we went from the ceiling of the best patients you want to work with, and then let's go to the floor. Okay. Again, different feeling in the body. And I really center the body because we all know when we're finally on this discovery call with a person, honoring that feeling. We've had it before and we've ignored it. I know I have, where you're talking with another person and you're just not feeling like it's aligned, but there's enough there that you think maybe we can make this work. And you let them in and it just doesn't work. And it's both of your faults. Maybe the skills that you have aren't able to help them steer into the habits that you think they would be helped with. And maybe their passions and their ability, their capacitance, or their disease states just are outside of your zone of genius. It can just be a mismatch. So think of those patients and feel that in your body. That feels like a no. It might feel heavy. It might feel like black sticky tar across your shoulders. It might feel prickly, but whatever that is, conjure up those specific patients, their personality types, their age, their gender, their symptoms, their diagnoses. And this isn't about, stereotyping at all. It's just about getting that emotion set in your body so that you can be familiar with what a red flag feels like. And get out your piece of paper or your notes app and let's talk about red flags. Red flags are signals that make you pause, right? Or most likely pass. But sometimes we're not ready to pass yet because a lot of us are recovering people pleasers. So please use these red flags as an introduction to strengthening this no muscle that you need when you run your own business. It's okay to say no to somebody who isn't aligned. It doesn't mean no forever. It can mean not right now. and they can come back a year later. I've had this happen many times. And every single time, the patient has been grateful for the no because it helped them go down a different path and learn something and come back an even better, more aligned patient. So remember, you can soften that no by saying not yet. So let's talk about red flags first. Okay. My number one red flag is entitlement. And what I mean by that is this pre-planned idea that they know already what is wrong with them. Now, hold on, before you come at me, I love it when patients have an idea of what's wrong with them. In fact, I tell them, you're the captain of your ship. Please tell me, what do you think is going on? What do you think contributed to this? This is important information. When I get a glimpse inside their thought process of how they've gotten to where they're at, it helps me plan the lab test, the treatment, and how I'm going to investigate or poke holes in what they think might be going on or augment and supplement to get a better picture of whether this might be true or not. What I mean by entitlement is rigid thinking, where already people are putting in their little vetting questionnaire that I just need to know what supplements to take. I'm not interested in lab testing. I just need to know exactly which supplements will fix this problem. Or they have this entitlement, like they're special in the fact that they don't really want to see me very often, or they don't want to adhere to the usual systems that we have in place, like an initial visit with a follow-up every month for 3 months. They really just want to do things their way from the beginning. And I know as I talk to mentees across the world, we've all made, I guess, allowances. We've all had moments where we've said, oh, okay, well, we'll let you in and we'll let them really steer the process. We'll make it a case by case basis. And that's where you end up in trouble. You need to learn to step into that authority and say, this is how I like to run my services. This is what I feel comfortable doing. And in my opinion, supplements don't fix everything. And it isn't just again, not just a pill for an ill or a sup for what's up. So this entitlement piece is really interesting. And you can see this in the way they speak, maybe the way they fill out the application. Okay. The urgency is another red flag for me. So when I sense urgency on the application with words like, I need this fixed now, I've got a wedding in a month, or I need to figure out my fatigue, or I just don't know what I'll do with myself, serious issues that their world is crumbling, or, they absolutely need to be able to get a hold of me 24/7, or they want same day appointments, or other senses of urgency that I can't deliver on. That tells me, yes, their limbic system is on overdrive, which I specialize in. So this is where it's great to be discerning at your own triggers. I love helping women that feel like they're at their wits' end and they are overwhelmed and they don't even know what to do. They might be in functional freeze, or they might be meltdown, overwhelmed, sympathetically activated. That's my specialty. So I have to be very careful because sometimes we use words that we don't really mean. And that's why this vetting process is an important part to get the beginning of a picture. So when I do talk to them in the strategy session or discovery call, I can ask more questions around this urgency and ask them to describe what they mean. Do you really think you need daily visits or portal messaging all day or every day? Or, tell me what that means. They might have had a story of practitioners that have been more dismissive. And once they sense that this is a safer place, their knuckles, they aren't white knuckling their journey. It's more of a relaxed journey. So all of these red flags are nuanced, as you can tell. Now, the next one is resistance. If I sense on the application that they're resistant to new things or specific things, for example, I don't want to change the food I eat. It's taken me years to find out that I only can tolerate rice, beans, and chicken. That's all I'm going to eat. I'm not going to challenge that. That makes me concerned and also worried about their longitudinal journey. And so the lack of openness can be very much of a red flag in the way I like to provide this vetting questionnaire. So sensing resistance, or things like that sounds too woo woo. I'm not really open to that. Hey, and that's fine. I delve deep into woo at times, but I also adjust my intake questionnaire, which we'll get to later in this mini series. I ask questions about spirituality and how important it is to them. And my role is to be this comprehensive place that can hold space for their worldview without projecting mine, but just being aware of how important it is in their life so that I align with their cultural preferences, their worldview. And sometimes if people are automatically very put off by any spirituality, it may not be a good fit. So resistance is key for a red flag in the way I may not offer them a step forward. Closed energy is another red flag for me. And we're talking short answers, no descriptors, yes or no. If I'm seeing them in person, it's, crossed arms, closed body language, minimal smiling. That's hard for me. And it might be a skill I need to train up. And sometimes that's the red flag. It's not really them. It's just that it won't work easily for my style of delivering medical care. And so just being aware of that, it helps me put the ball back in my court, whether I want to proceed further with this person. I also look for red flags that kind of appear like, and I don't want to use this word, but it fits the best. It's a victim or passive mentality. As we get into holistic integrative functional care, we tend to get patients that have really tried a lot. And that can unfortunately groom our thought processes into feeling like a victim. Nothing is working. And that can be very true. And it can also be a way to deflect the ownership of a problem. So this victim passivity can be that nothing works and I've tried everything and I don't think this is going to work either, but I thought I'd give it a shot. That kind of thing. That tells me that they're feeling very disempowered, which again, I specialize in. Burnout, stress can make you feel disempowered. But if you're at that severe level, it may not be the right time to work with me. So I look for these ways of seeing if this victim mentality shows up in other aspects of their life, or is it just their medical situation? Are they actively completing projects at work, or they're active in their community? They've got evidence that they're, fulfilled in other areas of their life. Well, then maybe this feeling of a victim in their medical situation makes total sense. And it's not infusing every single aspect of their life. The other thing is money drama, right? And I don't mean to make light of it. We all have limiting beliefs with money. It depends on our family of origin, our ancestors, the society we live in, the community we live in. That informs how we interact with the currency of money, which is energetic. And if this person is constantly bringing up money as well, I'll do this strategy session and then I'll think about it, or I don't have much at all to contribute, or, this becomes a limiting belief. I get it. And there are ways that you can help people if they can't afford your one-on-one services. I'm passionate about this. We'll talk about this later too, or you can listen to past episodes where I talk about setting up a 3-tiered membership model, or group visits, or discovery signature talks where you can give a workshop for people and it can change their life without paying for high ticket one-on-one services. So I'm here for all of that. But if this money drama is something that they have never invested in themselves, they've never paid money for a massage or holistic care or a gym membership or talk therapy. I mean, the list goes on and on. If they've really never invested, this might not be the first time that is going to be the success for them. They need to practice that money skill of giving and donating and investing and paying it forward for themselves in order for this to work. And lastly, I look for red flags that are evidence of boundary testing. Okay. So they go blow past my website, or they don't read the emails that say, do not call, please send a message or whatever these boundaries are. I have so many in place, right? And they continue to leave voicemails or ignore the voicemail message that says, please contact us in the website instead of leaving a message. And they continue to think that they will, again, be entitled to different care, that I might just let my boundaries down and adhere to their plan. And that's just not going to work for me. I need patients that know that my boundaries are for self-preservation, and it helps me be a better practitioner that is joyful and present and able to give the best medical care I can to everybody in my ecosystem of care. So if you dread seeing a specific name on your schedule, do some self-work to find out why. The problem may not be them. It is likely you, that you have diminished your boundaries, you have let somebody in that wasn't a good fit, that maybe you have some work to look at yourself and how you can change your services or adapt to allow them better care with somebody else that might fit their personality, their diagnoses, or their goals in life. Okay, so we've gone through green flags, red flags. The hardest part is the yellow flags, but they have the easiest solution. It just means you need to make decisions with clarity. So yellow flags are, pretty easy. Hesitancy. They're not sure, right? Well, that was a great discovery call. I'm just not sure I can invest. Totally fine. You have 30 days to make a decision. There are ways that you can ethically and lovingly give them some behavioral economics, a little nudge like, hey, I get it. Investing in yourself is hard. It can feel really interesting if you've not been used to doing this, or you're nervous that it may not work. But I'm here to say that I will do everything I can to support you. And this discovery call feels like a good alignment. If you're hesitant, my assistant will follow up in 30 days and let you know that that invitation has expired to join our membership. And then bless and release, right? Another yellow flag for me is this sense of like a codependency, right? That can be worked through, but sometimes it can be tricky. For example, my mom said that I needed to do this, and they have to constantly refer back to their mom and what their opinion is and whether it should work or not. And spoiler alert, their mom is like 70, and this person is actually a 50-year-old adult. Those kinds of interesting behavioral patterns, or we see this often in like a spouse or a partner, that they're having to check everything with their partner. And that's fine, especially if it's finances, right? You have resources you've pooled together, but you really want to vet, is this an energy that is workable in the way you do things? You, depending on your preferences, may invite that partner to come in to the visit so they can be a part of this planning process. But that's also encouraging this kind of codependency. And I like to encourage self-empowerment and ask the patients, like, how comfortable do you feel making decisions on your own? And depending on how they answer, that yellow flag can turn green or red. And it can be a great opportunity for them to step further into autonomy and agency and actually heal some inner patterns they weren't even aware of in this process of self-discovery. And finally, nervous energy. We all get it. When people get on the phone for a discovery call, sometimes they just dump all of their symptoms. They're so excited to have somebody who's willing to listen and to take time and attention. And that can be misconstrued as, overwhelming, trauma dumping, whatever have you. It could be misconstrued in so many ways. So you can frame this beforehand by giving a vetting Google form, like we're talking, that asks, those symptoms and how do you feel about those symptoms? And that will help them prepare for the eventual call. So when this happens, you can gently explain, oh, yes, I do remember the things you listed. And since we only have 15 minutes on this call, I really want to center on the top two things that you feel are the main problems. This helps you vet out, is this just nervous energy? Is this something that might be a recurring issue? And it helps you plan for a better yes rather than a no, thank you, not at this time. Okay, every episode, we always have a catalyst question. And today's episode, in our part 1 of 4 mini-series, the catalyst question is, what is one red flag that you may have ignored over the years? Maybe one red flag that you might want to polish, become more discerning, and figure out a system of saying, no, thank you, not right now. Now, we can't have all green flags in our clinic or in our services, but it is a great aspirational goal. And by identifying your red flags and minimizing them, you are well on the path of enjoying your discovery calls and feeling aligned. So today, I hope you are inspired to open up a Google form or some kind of vetting process that people have to apply to get into your ecosystem. Remember, this application process is helping them already transform their thinking by thinking critically about some of the things that they're struggling with. It also helps you as you identify these green and red flags, and then you can start shaping and molding your clinic to be more in alignment with your mission, purpose, and goals. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, subscribe, and share with a colleague that might find this inspirational to review their green and red flags. And stay tuned for the second episode in this mini series of the Art of Transformation, where we will go through questions that you can sequence in your discovery call. What scripts you can say. We're going to unpack a trauma-informed method so that you're inviting your patients even deeper into this journey of healing. And you also will leave the discovery call feeling clear-headed, confident, and excited. So thank you for coloring outside the lines, and keep practicing that 6th vital sign of creative self-expression in your own work-life masterpiece. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to The Catalyst Way, where we clear the chaos and create space to flourish. If today's episode lit a spark in you, please take the Catalyst Archetype quiz. It's free, fun, and freakishly accurate. Go to drlarasalyer.com/create. In less than 5 minutes, you will uncover your burnout risk, learn your creative strengths, and the work rhythms that actually energize you. Because it's not about finding the perfect plan, but rather flowing with the one that fits you. Go to drlarasalyer.com/create and take the quiz now. Remember, tiny shifts catalyze immense impact. So keep coloring outside those lines.